connected to iPhone.
I honestly think it's coming from his wife.
Those folks are not going to like this.
I think it's coming from his wife.
This is going around today. This is the jacket she wore to.
What she's saying?
Meeting.
It says, "I really don't care. Do you?"
Yeah, this was to a meeting of the immigration.
Yeah.
Kids. She's meeting
What?
the kids. Yeah.
What is that? Is that some fashion jacket?
That she wore to that event. Yeah.
What a stupid fucking thing to wear. I really don't care. Do you? Yeah, I care.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do care. But what are we talking about? What a bizarre, open-ended question. I really don't care about what?
The tone deafness of these people. They have no sensitivity to
she's
how
an
it
open
looks.
critic, though, of separating children from their families. And she actually made a surprise visit to the Mexican border today to check in on it. Yeah, to see what's going on.
Good for her.
Yeah, good. Well, she's an immigrant. I mean, this is the irony of the whole thing. She barely speaks English. The whole thing is so bizarre. Is that his own wife is a fucking immigrant. I mean, clearly. The whole thing's crazy. It's really strange. But that jacket, like, this is a sign of the simulation. Have you considered the simulation theory?
Yes.
Might be real. Might be real. Might be real. I mean,
well, sometimes I do wonder. I mean, it's like reality, whatever we choose to call it, is becoming so weird that I often ask myself, who is writing this shit? And can't they get a better writer? You know, I mean, the plot is so absurd, and yet,
I began actively considering it when Congressman Weiner kept pulling his dick out. I was like, this is just crazy.
Right.
That guy, I'm like, this is just too much. And then when Trump won, I just was sitting down going, imagine if one day someone shuts it off and the lights dim and then they turn back on and you realize, well, the game's over. How did you like it? And you're like, what? That was fake? Yeah, you just went, it only took an hour. How long did it seem? Like 50 years, you know? And you're in a simulation with artificial memories implanted into your mind. Well, the one day that the idea is that there's going to be an artificial reality or a virtual reality that's so good that it's indistinguishable. I mean, this is almost inevitable. If technology increases at the same rate that it's increasing now, whether it's 50 years from now or 100 years from now, we're going to reach some point in time. So the real question is, when we do reach that, how will we know?
Well, what if we're already there?
Yes.
But if it is a simulation, how would we know? And how do we test it?
Yeah, how do we test it? Yeah.
You know, but another aspect of this is, do we really want this? You know, do we want to be immersed in a virtual reality, even if we could produce one so sophisticated we couldn't tell it from whatever this is? Let's assume for the moment that this is reality. It's not. Do we want to migrate into a virtual reality?
My real concern, is that we are the last wave of the biological human. I really do believe this.
I'm concerned about that too, and I'm not sure. I think that's a good thing.
I don't necessarily think it's a good thing for the biological human, but I feel like if you separate yourself from the idea of good and bad and the inevitability of innovation and progress, if human beings continue to make more and more complex electronics with higher and higher capabilities, it's inevitable that we become symbiotic with these things, that we ingrain them into they're going to become a part of your body. We're going to replace body parts with more efficient body parts.
Right.
And we're one day going to create some sort of artificial life. Now, whether we become a part of that artificial life, we merge with it, or it just assumes the role of the leader of the earth, one of those things is likely to happen within the next 500 years. It's just, and that's a really generous time frame.
Yeah, I think that's a generous time frame.
Yeah.
Well, you know, this I mean, in some ways, this is sort of this raises the issue about, one of the things that psychedelics put in front of us, front and center, is the fact that we are getting estranged from nature.
Yeah.
That's the main lesson. We're getting estranged from nature. We have to re-understand our relationship and become a partner that's in a symbiosis with nature. And this projection is the exact opposite of that.
Yeah.
So is that, so maybe, and this raises also one issue that we haven't really touched on, but technology, which is what this virtual reality stuff is, and what any artifact is. Psychedelics are technology, molecular biology is technology, cybernetics is technology. Technology inherently has no moral dimension. These are not good or bad things. The way that they are used by humans, the decisions that humans make in the way that they're going to exploit or deploy these technologies, that's where the moral dimension comes in. Morality comes out of the human heart, and one of our problems, I feel, as a species, we're extremely clever, but we're not wise. Ooh. That's what it is. We're not wise about what we do. We're not able to step back and say, well, yeah, we can download the brain into cybernetics, or we can produce an artificial body, or we can do all this genetic stuff. Do we ever stop to think about, just because we can do something, should we do something? And the arrogance of science, this is also a problem. The scientists will say, well, we are scientists, right? We can do it, so let's do it.
Right.
We can do the Hadron experiment, and maybe it would collapse the space-time continuum, but a very small probability, so let's do it, right?
Yeah.
And it's something we have to learn. I think also that the psychedelics are important in that regard. They are ways that we can bring our cleverness and our wisdom into sync, so that we have the wisdom not to do something, even though we might be able to. We shouldn't do it just because we can do it. We really have to, as a species, ask ourselves, is this a good idea? And I think, again, the psychedelics are teaching tools for learning this and really propagating the message from the community of species.
That's for sure going to be a meme with a photo of your face that we are very clever, but we're not wise. That's for sure going to be a meme. Some dude is or gal is working on that right now.
Well, I've been talking about this for years,
but that
so it's
sentence
about time.
Is so striking.
Yeah.
My real concern with this stuff is that this is inevitable. And this is just like the single-celled organism became the multi-celled organism, and that the thinking, curious monkey who strives for material possessions is designed to create artificial life. And this is just what we're set here. I've described it as that we are the technological butterfly that will emerge from the cocoon. And right now we're creating this cocoon, that we are this caterpillar, this technological caterpillar, and we don't know why we're making this cocoon, and that we are going to give birth to this artificial life, this next stage of
and that may
complexity.
Be true. That may be true too. I mean, what you say is true. On some level, anything that can be done is going to be done. Somebody's going to do it.
Right.
But so,
is it good?
Is it good? Is it good for the collective? I mean, there are always megalomaniacs who will say, well, I can do it. I could start a nuclear war. So why don't we do this? And that's the tricky part. Again, I think, psychedelics are important in giving us a moral compass. I mean, wisdom, not a set of, rules that come out of the religious perception, a set of rules that come out of the biological perception. What is most compatible? What is most nourishing for living things? Presumably, we don't want to trash this planet. We now have the ability to do that. The forces that we can manipulate for the first time in history pose a real possibility that we could end life on Earth. I think it's hard, but I think we may be able to do it. And I, for one, don't want to see that happen.
I had a bit a few years back in my comedy act about the origins of the universe, and that what happens is people get so smart that they develop a Big Bang machine, and that someone's sitting around and some guy who's on the autism spectrum is filled up with SSRIs and antidepressants and drinking Red Bull all day. He just goes, fuck it, I'll press it. And he hits the button and boom, we start from scratch. And then every, 14 plus billion years, someone develops the Big Bang machine and hits it, and that's the restart of the universe over
You're
and over
really
again.
obsessed with this idea the universe is a simulation, aren't
I am.
you? Yeah.
Root cares about that so rare concept in the insurance industry, fairness. Instead of
In some ways.
It's possible. I mean, it's possible.
It is, well, it's inevitable that there will be simulated worlds.
Right.
I'm not necessarily completely obsessed with the idea that we're living in a simulation, but I am completely obsessed that we are a relic and that we are on our way out. I really am. I really do think that maybe that's one of the reasons why we're so crazy and so haywire. It just shows there's no logical progression for our culture, that it's as advanced as we are, as much access to information as we have, we're also as crazy as we've ever been, if not crazier.
Yeah. So the age of the curious monkey is coming to a close.
I wonder how much of a limitation our biology is, too. I mean, you think about what it took to get to here and all the battles we had to fight and the animals we had to run from and all these human reward systems that are ingrained into our DNA, and that now here we are in a place where we hardly need them, and yet we still have them just blowing up and exploding and vomiting all over the place in these weird ways, and we have them sort of manifesting themselves in very strange behaviors that aren't good for anybody, and this constant need to acquire material possessions and conquer and obtain things. That this is not tenable. This is not something that makes sense in the long haul, but yet we still go down this illogical road, and that this is really just because this is the best way to fuel innovation. Our extreme desire for material possessions is the best way to ensure that they're going to keep coming up with newer, better things every year, which will eventually give birth to the electronic butterfly.
Well, I don't know what to say about that. I mean, it may be where we're headed, and it may be that this is a necessary step. I mean, if our destiny is to actually leave the Earth at some point, if
I got a girlfriend,
the Earth is an incubator for life,
we're not married.
We're just destined to.
I don't believe in marriage, bro. That shit is a contract. You know what I'm saying? A legally binding document. That's all that shit is, man. People say, oh, it helps you when it comes to filing taxes and getting loans and mortgaging a house and all, but fuck that shit, man. If I love somebody, I love somebody. I'll be with them. I don't need a contract to say, me and you are going to be together. Sickness and health, to death do us part, blah, 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 blah. Whatever, dude. I believe in free spirit. I believe in passion and beauty. I believe in love. I believe in the universal consciousness. I believe in a lot of shit. I don't believe in a lot of man-made shit like marriage. Ye of little faith. The Bible said you only need a little faith anyway. He who has the faith of a mustard seed will be able to move mountains. So, ye of little faith. I can still move a mountain. It's no biggie. You know what I'm saying? Motherfucking kings and emperors and lords, man, these motherfuckers had multiple wives and concubines and all that shit, man. Mustard is gross. I believe in questioning everything. You know what I'm saying? This world has been set up the way it is for so long, and generations come in and go out and go through these same fucking motions and follow these same centralized ways of behaving based on the construct of society. I question all that shit. Let's say I stopped standing for the Pledge of Allegiance when I was in the 4th grade. Nobody told me to do that shit. I didn't read a book or see a documentary or none of that shit. I just questioned that shit. Why the fuck we gotta do this shit every morning? And y'all make us do this shit every morning. I'm not about to be like everybody else. Screw this. So I just stopped standing for the pledge at a young age, a very young age. I believe in questioning everything. I don't know if a sinkhole is a hell portal, but I have had a girl almost suck my soul out. Bitch, your mouth is the gate to hell. How you do that? See what on YouTube? Sinkhole is the portal to hell? Nah, that shit is crazy.
By putting control of sex at the heart of his religious message, Paul wrapped his own particular views on sexual behavior in the moral authority of the creator of the universe, and he made it stick. Where's the Temple of Aphrodite now? There's hardly a stone of it left.
Temple of Aphrodite. Aphrodite. Aphrodisiac? Aphrodisiac? Wonder where these root words come from.
Thank you, St. Paul. Before Christianity, there'd been no such thing as a thought or feeling that needed a priest's forgiveness. The idea of sinfulness just did not exist. By the 4th century AD, the church was claiming that if you confessed your sins to a priest, he could forgive them. The power that this conferred on the priest meant that from then on, they were going to control our attitudes to sex. People all over the world had once believed that the essential sexual power of the gods made the world alive. Sexual love was literally divine. The church was determined to destroy that link, and a lot...
Man, everything is racist. You ain't know that? My motherfucking paint is racist. Yeah, that's racist as fuck. They don't make no Negroid flesh tone or no motherfucking Mongoloid flesh tone but they got Caucasian. It's kind of racist. Everything is racist, man. He always uses on the black people. Racist ass motherfucker. You know how many tubes of Van Dyke Brown he used? Ah. some Asianic. I never seen a tube of paint that said Asianic flesh tone. Like, nah, that shit just nah. But they got Caucasian. Hey. That's what I'm gonna do next. I'm gonna do 2 paintings with the girls with the hair, and then after these 2, I have no idea as of yet. Seriously, I've been trying to rack my brain, come up with some ideas. I got some ideas, but they kind of like fuzzy and out of focus and too broad. I need to like home in on these motherfuckers, condense them, visualize it, get an image, produce the image. It's like mental gymnastics up in this motherfucker. Corky. Who's that? From Mongolia, bitch.
On with it, paganism itself. And of course, the destruction of paganism meant that Christians would replace pagan priests at the center of power. The antipathy to sex of the early Christian authorities was so complete, it even extended to the whole idea of marriage.
Marriage is a moral crime, more dreadful than any punishment or any death.
Marriage is a crime against God, a prostitution of the members of Christ.
It was certainly a novel approach. Sexual love once linked mankind to divinity. But now, in Christianity, it did the opposite. Sex cut you off from the love of God. The church imposed restrictions. Obviously only one partner, and not quite so obviously, only one position, man on top. No sex on holidays, or fast days, or without your clothes on, or in church. Or one you mustn't enjoy, of course. In the pagan world, there could be no such thing as sexual shame. Sex was what linked you and me to the divine. The rise to power of Christianity changed all that. Sex became the thing that cut you off from God. Disapproval of sex helped Christianity to define itself as distinct from paganism. And at the same time, it provided the priesthood with a means of control that was all-pervasive.
Now to breaking news we told you about at the top of our newscast. A major announcement from the White House, sure to spark a political debate.
At a certain point, I've just concluded that, for me personally, it is important for me to go ahead and affirm that I think same-sex couples should be able to get married.
This is a clear assault on the sanctity of marriage, and I am not the only one who knows it. So does Pastor Robert Jeffress of First Baptist Dallas.
By embracing same-sex marriage, President Obama has really contradicted the Jesus that he says he follows.
And I, right now, would like to read to you what the Jesus said about homosexuality. I'd like to, but he never said anything about it.
the endless culture war in America rages on, new lines are drawn and new battles are chosen. The fight for marriage equality has two distinct sides, those who view marriage as a right and those who view marriage as a privilege. In 1996, Congress passed the Defense of Marriage Act, or DOMA, by an overwhelming majority in both houses, and it was signed into law by President Clinton. Since its passing, DOMA has been struck down and upheld in federal courts several times as it makes its way to the Supreme Court. In the 19th century, the founder of the Mormon Church, Joseph Smith, tried to bring back the long-lost traditional marriage practice of polygamy in Western culture.
I agree with 3,000 years of recorded history. Marriage is an institution between a man and a woman.
Sacrament of marriage was based on a man and woman, has been for 3,000 years, is at the core of our civilization, and is something worth protecting and upholding.
Several different marriage practices exist within the text of the Bible, all of which were legitimate in that time and culture. However, the practice of marriage predates Christianity and Judaism.
So it's a little bit difficult to say exactly when the institution of marriage came about, historically, or prehistorically especially. Historically, we have some records, but a good guess would be about 50,000 years ago. Marriage is pretty well a cultural universal, but the particular form of marriage in a particular society, a particular subculture or subgroup of a society can vary, and it can change extremely quickly, even over a single generation.
It wasn't until the late 18th century that what we now think of as the essence of love and marriage going together like a horse and carriage, it became respectable to encourage people to make their choices. For the reason that people were so historically suspicious about love is that marriage for thousands of years had very little to do with the individual relationship between a man and a woman. And the more I study marriage, the more I'm convinced that the invention of marriage had nothing at all to do with the relationship between the man and the woman. Marriage was invented to get in-laws. It was a way of turning strangers into relatives, of making peace. That's why the word for wife in many languages means peace weaver.
Marriage is how you make an alliance, or one way of making an alliance with another family group.
Marguerite de Valois. Acceptes-tu pour époux Henri de Bourbon, roi de Navarre? Marguerite de Valois, acceptes-tu pour... Au nom du Père, au nom du Fils et au nom de la Sainte Église, je vous déclare mariés.
If you think about what marriage is doing, all right, it's creating alliances, it's creating relations of descent, it's regulating sexual access between people, it's assigning responsibility for child care, and it's distributing economic labor. And those are things that need to be done. And marriage is a powerful way for accomplishing those tasks. It is also a powerful, publicly sanctioned social construct that accomplishes a number of other things besides just having kids.
Every culture in the world that we know of knows that there's such a thing as romantic love. But in most cultures, and through most of history, this is not an emotion that is celebrated, especially in conjunction with marriage.
The primary purpose of marriage is still, no matter how many times they want to deny it, and curse it, the primary purpose of marriage is still the propagation, the procreation of the human race.
You are making and procreation is the only rational basis for the heterosexual marriage, or is it?
It is the emphasis. Yes.
Is there any other rational basis?
It ties in with tradition and the management of tradition.
The legislature obviously could not constitutionally redefine marriage to mean only marriage between people of the same race. Correct? So it's not a marriage unless the two people are of the same race?
No, of course not.
Is there any real difference between a definition and a substantive limitation? And isn't the state in substance saying only people of the opposite sex can get married?
So traditional marriage depends very much on the politics of representation going on and what kind of social relationship the person talking about the traditional marriage is trying to legitimize.
And you know what's fascinating is that immediately social conservatives of the day, defenders of what was then the traditional marriage, political and economic convenience, were absolutely horrified. They said, oh my gosh, if you make marriage about love, how are we going to get the right people to marry? You know, if my son can say, Eve, I don't love her, you know, stupid reason like that. How are we going to prevent the wrong people from marrying? Today, the debate is, well, you know, gays and lesbians are saying, well, if marriage is about love and sexual satisfaction and it no longer has to be about gender roles, why can't we have access to marriage? In the 18th century, they were afraid that poor people would want access to marriage.
I mean, if we think of family structures as adaptable and as helping people out, whatever the social or economic or political conditions might be, if you just think about the diversity we've got in the world right now of kinship structures and marriage patterns. So clearly there's been a lot of shifting and changing, and it's going on now, and it's likely to continue into the future.
Alright, so this is Charles Hyde from Good News Jamaica, and I'm here with Akala. And we're just going to talk about, you know, we do the thing, we just do reasoning. And we're supposed to make it flow so we can get some inspiration and things about good Jamaicans doing great things. So, welcome Akala.
Bless King, oh God.
There, man. First of all, I want to thank you for being you, number one. Right?
I appreciate that, King.
But I'm a little confused, because we all get access to information. Right? We all get, we have a chance to go get books and all these things, but we don't naturally take everything, internalize it, and then spit it out into positivity. But you've taken it and turned it into a rainbow of a career. Hip-hop, theater, books, and all kind of things, poetry. How come?
I think some of it was, first of all, thank you. A lot of it was really the luck of my upbringing. So I grew up in England, poor by English standards, but culturally very rich. So I went to a special Saturday school, a Pan-African Saturday school, so a black Saturday school called the Winnie Mandela School. Where, so when I was 5, we was learning about Paul Bogle or Sam Sharp, so I never internalized a lot of the myths about black people for a start. So you know, like, them teach you Wilberforce set us free and all of this kind of nonsense. I knew very early a lot of positive, I knew who Marcus, I drew my mum still got a school picture I drew when I was like 7. And it was a Christmas tree with the UNIA Marcus Garvey thing on top of the Christmas tree, right? And I was 7. My stepdad was the stage manager of a theatre in the UK. Called the Hackney Empire, which is really London's equivalent to the Apollo, to be crude. It's a black-led theatre in the hood. But culturally it was, I mean, I met Hugh Masekela, the legendary South African jazz musician, when I was 8 or 9. I saw Tamani Naphtali's production of Black Heroes in the Hall of Fame 50 times. I did lights for the Russian circus. So, in a way, I mean, it's not just me, it's my older sister who's a big-time singer in the UK, and then even my next sister down is a professional stunt woman. Like she's doing stunts for Game of Thrones right now, you know what I mean? So our family was very, very lucky. Obviously, we still, we worked hard, and I've chosen to go on and read the things I read and study, but in a sense, I have to say a lot of it was the luck of being really surrounded by a culturally enriching and kind of very much black conscious Caribbean, it was the Caribbean intelligentsia really, but working class. So when my mum got with my dad, her dad was not very happy because he was quite racist. And so my mum got kicked out of the house. But fortunately for me and for her, she was basically adopted by a family of Guyanese socialists.
Okay.
So obviously they'd come from Guyana, bringing the traditions of Walter Rodney, bringing the traditions of Eric Williams, bringing the traditions of C.L.R. James and the whole kind of pan-Caribbean socialist tradition.
Yeah.
And so my mum got kind of inculcated, even as a white woman, she got brought into that tradition. So by the time she has a picnic them, she has this cultural equipment to be able to share with them via my godfather, who I dedicate my book to and all that. So yes, we worked hard, but a lot of it really, I have to admit, was the environment I grew up in and the stuff I was given by other people.
So I want to touch about the Winnie Mandela School.
Yeah.
I grew up in America.
Yeah.
Never had no chance of that.
Yeah.
Right? The concept of that would never even be allowed.
Yeah.
What's this? What made the African diaspora in England come up with this Pan-African?
No, to be fair, I mean, I don't know where in America you were. Maybe they didn't have it in your city, but like, even if you think in America, they have predominantly black institutions, so they have Howard and
but
they're not radical. They're still through the state.
No, but that's college.
Yeah.
Right, because I went to a HBCU. I went to Lincoln University.
Oh,
right.
Okay.
So I know about that.
But you mean from the Saturday school?
Yeah, the Saturday school.
I'm not sure, to be honest. I presume there have been similar projects in America, but I don't actually know. But what I will say is, what happened in the UK, right? Our grandparents basically migrated there after the war.
Yeah.
Thinking that their children were going to get better opportunities, better chances than they would have had in Jamaica, thinking they would have access. They basically believed the propaganda. They believed that Britain would welcome them. A lot of them were war heroes, remember?
Yes, of course.
So they're thinking they're going to go to this country and get a hero's welcome.
Yes.
And instead what they got was basically racism from every level of the British society.
Right.
And the way this manifested in schools, remember Britain is a very unequal society even for white people.
Yes.
So Jamaicans won't know this, but like obviously it's not Trenchtown, but there's very poor white neighborhoods in England. Lots of them, where there's violence and drug addiction and low education and all of the problems. Basically the ghetto. There's no other way to describe it, right?
Okay.
When Caribbeans went to Britain, that's who we were put with. We were put in the neighborhoods with poor Irish people, with people that were despised, with people that were poor.
Yeah.
And that came even in the education system.
Yeah.
Where they would just assume a black kid was dumb and put them in the bottom set without even testing their intelligence.
Okay.
So one of the reactions to that was that British Caribbean set up these Saturday schools to counteract the racism in the school and actually the poor quality of the teaching. Remember, if you was a Caribbean in 1960 and you was literate, after 300 years of British rule, they never built enough schools.
Right.
Only 20% of people was literate.
Right.
It's only since independence literacy has spread. So a lot of people in that generation were middle-class civil servants, lawyers, doctors, whatever else. You had some workers, like my grandma was poor, she was from country. But the Kingstonians who went early, a lot of them were quite well educated. What that meant was they were going to Britain and being put in poor neighborhoods, and they were actually better educated than some of the poor people they were living with. And so one of their counteractions against this, people like Gus John, who's not from Jamaica, actually he's from Grenada, he was one of the leaders of this. So it was very much a pan-Caribbean movement, it wasn't just Jamaicans. And they set up about 150 of these schools,
150?
There was one at the height, Bernard Cord writes about this. At the height of them was about 150. They were small supplementary schools.
Like 5 students?
No, more than that. Like maybe 50 students.
Wow.
So like my one was probably about 50 students.
So, and even in Jamaica, that type of education what you're talking about, it never existed. It still doesn't exist.
Which is terrible.
It is
I think one of the real big challenges, Jamaica is in many ways a cultural superpower in the way that I feel like people who are not fortunate enough to leave the island often don't recognize, other than in England basically, how much goodwill there is in the world for Jamaica.
Right.
How much, if something bad happened to Jamaica, people in Thailand would be upset. Like there's a Marley Museum in Thailand, I've seen it from my own eyes. People around the world love Jamaica and they associate Jamaica with peace and love and Rastafari and reggae music and political consciousness and all of these kind of things there. And the Jamaican government and the Jamaican upper classes are caught in this weird position, in my humble opinion, right? Where the cultural, Jamaica's soft power in the world comes from the Jamaican ghetto.
That's right.
It doesn't come from the Jamaican upper classes.
Right.
And so they're in this weird position where they want to look down on ghetto people, but at the same time they want to benefit from the culture of ghetto people. This is not true for any other country. Every other country they export the culture of the middle and the upper classes. Jamaica is in this strange position where you have Trenchtown is the reason the world loves Jamaica. Trenchtown is the #1 spot for Airbnb. You know?
Absolutely.
Some people, you know, it's you know, it's not black people Airbnb in Trenchtown, right? But the point I'm making is this. In 2018, there's no reason why in a country with 90% African heritage, why decent African history is not taught in school. I've said this already on my Twitter and I say this still now. Any Jamaican school that wants to write to me and wants a set of good African history books, I will send them at my own cost. And this is I'm saying this publicly. They just email me. I will send my teachers books at my own cost. That's how much I feel this is a travesty that you sort of have still in 2018 a generation of African Jamaicans essentially, and not just black Jamaicans. You know, I'm talking everybody. Everybody. Because you learn Shakespeare, that's great. Nothing wrong with learning Shakespeare. Shakespeare's a brilliant writer. But there were African writers. So if we think of the Tariq al-Fatash, there's a 16th century West African history of Islamic Africa, written by an African, contemporaneous with Shakespeare. It exists in English translation today. Wow. Why these things are not being taught in Jamaican schools? To me is a real damage and oversight. Because it means you grow up almost thinking like the black people came to Jamaica culture empty-handed. Whereas everyone else, we know Chinese Jamaicans came with culture. We know Scottish Jamaicans came with culture. We know Jewish Jamaicans came with culture. We know English Jamaicans came with culture. But those of us who came from Africa came with what? You see? So I feel like that really is of many of the great things Jamaica has overcome, this is one that is still lacking.
So, on that note, you come to Jamaica often.
Come on, every year.
You come at least once a year.
Every year.
Right? So, what are you doing with this society to impart that type of knowledge? Because I mean, you're a treasure chest of information.
Trying to be.
And how do you then impart that on the next generation? Or
one of the things I want to do, which I've been talking to a few people about, we haven't quite gotten the way yet, but I'll put it out there anyway publicly, just in case anyone wants to get involved in some capacity. No, it's a long-term project, but one of the things I've always been passionate about is trying to build small libraries even in the remotest areas. So imagine we took on a project, I don't know if there's someone in the state that could help us with this, or Yui or someone, and I'd be happy to put into it. But basically building small libraries all over Jamaica. Now imagine every small village like this, like Treasure Beach had one. Everywhere basically, even the small places, you know there's a place, basically a house of knowledge. Where so even if you're not in school and even if you're not fortunate enough to go UE, even if you ain't got the money to go Kingston Bookshop, you just stimulate an all-round intellectual culture right across the width from breadth of the island, so that everyone who's literate can just go, little philosophy club, them kind of things. It's about access. Because enough people, if you're living in rural, books are more expensive here than they are in England.
True.
And the wage differential is, you know, average wage. You know what I mean? So for an ordinary Jamaican, no matter what your intellectual appetite, it's very, very difficult to build up your own small library of books.
So then, like, you're thinking like 500 books, 400 books?
Maybe even more than that, maybe 1,000. 1,000 books is not a big library, you know?
Not a big library.
But if you had that in 50 locations or 100 locations across Jamaica, think of the type of intellectual, and that's not an expensive project.
It's not.
Right, a small little room, just nicely decorated, one person to man it.
Yeah.
And I mean, public library, but staffed by community. There's loads of publishers I know, like in England, that would donate. So it's something I've been thinking about for a while that I would.
All right.
I'm talking to a few friends who are in positions of influence here. That's something I'd like to do over a sort of long term.
So, what would you need to get that started? Because you say I'm a man that say let's get it done. Right?
Well, I think you would need, you know, probably buying. You wouldn't necessarily. You could possibly do it independently, but if there was like an education minister or a person of that nature that you had buy-in from, or schools that you had buy-in from, just to get the small buildings constructed, and then it would just be those of us who are in England. We can put money together and ship books, because actually for us, books are actually relatively cheap in comparison to wages in England. They're very expensive in comparison to wages in Jamaica.
Right.
So it means it's much easier for us in England to buy 5,000 books and ship them than it is for Jamaicans in Jamaica to buy 5,000 books. What it costs as a percentage of your wage is much, much higher.
Right.
Books are £9 or £10 in England, and the average wage is £25,000 a year. Books are £25, £30 in Jamaica, and the average wage is $3,000 US a year. So actually it would be something us as the Jamaican diaspora in the UK, who already send billions of pounds back every year anyway, could do with relative ease if we were. If there was organisation with people like yourself, with government, with education ministers, with UE, and you could just boom. You know, like you got to help Jamaica. You got a campaign.
Absolutely.
And man, you have a campaign. Yo, get Jamaica reading, and people read. People value knowledge.
Well, we have Read Across Jamaica, so this is another thing that I mean, we can talk more for camera because I already know my head already moving.
It's your head spin.
Yeah, man, head spin. Because it's easy to do.
Yeah, exactly.
It's easy to do. But now, I was talking earlier about your rainbow of concentrations. How did you move into hip hop? I mean, I know you grew up in the culture of hip hop, so you had the Wu-Tang and you had the influences there. But how did you decide, you know what, I can do that? I want to do that.
Well, because again, culturally, remember, hip hop is a fusion of the Jamaican sound system,
of course,
and American jazz, Gil Scott-Heron type poetry. That fusion in New York with Cool DJ Herc and all the Jamaicans that went over is what gives birth to hip hop. Well, in England, the situation was kind of similar, but different in the sense that the Jamaican sound system comes to England and it gives birth to its own cousins of hip hop, if you like. So the first MC to go to #1 in England was Smiley Culture, 1985.
Oh, interesting.
And he rapped not in American, but Jamaican and English. Done a song called Cockney Translation, where he translate. Right? So I knew Smiley personally. He's actually my uncle, and him had the same ex-wife, right? So I grew up on a sound system. My dad ran a sound. Grew up around, you know, all of the sound systems in the UK. So I was always rapping. In the beginning, so in primary school, I performed Mega Bantam, Champion Sound, in my primary school assembly. I grew up on Bounty Killer as much as I did KRS-One. So I never saw hip-hop as this foreign American thing. I saw it as part of the cultures of the black diaspora. Because every Jamaican's got cousins in New York.
Of course.
So our cousins in New York would send us a DJ Clue tape or a Red Alert tape, and it would be in Brixton and Tottenham the day after. It would be in Brixton and Tottenham before it was in Los Angeles. You see? So in a way, our connection to hip-hop was via New York specifically, because there were so many Jamaicans there. So it never felt like this separate American thing. It felt like our American cousins was doing something, and we were sort of related to it. And so I just always was writing, and then fortunately I'm of an age where UK hip-hop has now gone big. But 10 years before, if I was born 10 years earlier, the opportunities I have now would have been impossible. The internet, basically the British music industry just ignored British rappers.
Of course.
Then the internet happened, and then Kia ignored it away anymore. It just blew up too big.
Because you and I don't remember the other hip-hop guy from England that just, it's like, you all were doing this. You know, I can't remember the other gentleman.
Well, there's loads now because it's like hip-hop and grime. So you got Stormzy, you got Skepta, you got Dave, you got
Stormzy,
you got Low-Key, you got...
No, Low-Key.
That's it.
Low-Key. You and Low-Key was doing this
man, I'm
in the beginning.
Man. But you got a real good scene now, a healthy scene that you didn't have before.
Yes. How you move into poetry, bro?
Well, hip-hop is poetry. Rap is poetry performed over music. So I don't feel like I was moving into something. I feel like rap is one form of poetry.
So which one came first?
Rap. I was rapping first before I was writing poetry.
Because
reggae music is poetry.
Well, I know that from a very basic point of view. But you see, you take poetry. What you specific, how you rap. Is a completely different delivery than how you do poetry.
100%.
Right? So you study poetry.
100%.
And you deliver poetry as poetry.
100%.
Where did that interest come in?
Again, I think the same thing, having grown up in the theatre, I always had that exposure to culture. I never felt... So the way it is in Jamaica, in England, sorry, a lot of people grew up poor. They feel like theatre's for the... Basically, theatre is for uptown people. It's the same equivalent in England, right? Except we would say posh people. Whereas I never grew up with that, because I grew up in this Caribbean working class led theatre. So I think it's just about studying the craft and being... The earlier you're exposed to something, the more entitlement you'll feel over it. And so I never felt intimidated. I just felt like I had the right, essentially.
How about the Shakespeare thing now? Because when you deliver Shakespeare, it's different.
Well, again, I think a lot of the Shakespeare that's done today, that says it's proper, is not done how it was done in Shakespeare's time. For example, you know when people in England speak like this, very posh, what they call the Queen's English. That type of speaking is called received pronunciation. It was not even invented when Shakespeare was alive. It was invented 150 years after he died, 200 years after he died. The way people sounded in Elizabethan England, the word hours was pronounced ers, mud was pronounced mud, and blood. They sounded like people from the English countryside, rural countryside. There was no concept of speaking proper yet. My good friends, actually, David and Ben Crystal, two top British linguists, they've done a lot of good work on this. It's what's called OP, original pronunciation. And so actually a lot of this posh kind of thing around Shakespeare is a later Victorian imposition. about reinforcing class separate. Shakespeare was popular culture of his day. He was the reggae music of his day. Don't get me wrong, he wasn't revolutionary like reggae music politically. He was a monarchist and he was in with the establishment. My point is he was the popular entertainment of his day. He wasn't trying to be some big stuck-up, posh, poor people can't get it, and it was popular culture.
Really?
Yeah, man.
And you know, we're not taught that.
Of course, because it's now used to basically make poor people feel stupid.
Yeah, exactly.
Rather than the dude was trying to entertain people. And when you look at the stories, violence, sex, drugs, betrayal, love, lust.
Right.
It's movie business. It's the same stuff that makes any great story.
Right.
And instead of teaching it that way, academics often teach Shakespeare as if Shakespeare wrote to impress academics.
That's
but not
exactly.
right for them, right for the people. So for me, I took Shakespeare particularly because of the way Shakespeare's been used to say, no man, there's 100 songs in Shakespeare's plays.
Yeah.
Things that were sung when they were performed.
Yeah.
So I took this to say, if you can teach Shakespeare in a way that is fun, exciting, engaging, it's not about dumbing it down, you know.
Yeah,
it's just about, this is supposed to be fun.
Yeah.
It was popular culture. Then you can do it with anything. And my thing is, you see, think about how we even learn our alphabet. We learn it by rhyme and rhythm and meter. So any subject, these are basically ways the human brain works. Rhyme and rhythm and meter help you to memorize stuff. And so I think it's just about giving people that sense of, I don't like this idea of, too much reverence for what is supposed to be high culture. Reggae music is high culture. In the sense that when a form of art takes on a level of philosophical profoundness, that's what makes it high.
Yes.
Not whether it's done by upper class people or lower class people.
Of course.
What happens often is art is evaluated based on our perceptions of who is doing it. When we're 200 years from now, people are going to look back and write about Bob Marley and Peter Tosh and Dennis Brown and Gregory Isaacs and say, wow, these were some of the greatest songwriters of their era. They're going to be, look at jazz music. When jazz music was contemporary, we used to look at jazz music, not to get to people, black people's business. Now we look back on jazz like, basically like black classical music.
Yes.
You see it?
Yes.
Once we have sufficient distance from reggae, that is how reggae is going to be looked at. Because the philosophical profoundness, the level of songwriting, the level of musical discipline, you hear lots of jazz musicians or classical musicians say reggae is simple. Then you ask them to play it, and them can't play it because they don't have the feeling.
Right, them don't have the, yes.
Right. So how can you say something simple if you can't
play it? Exactly.
And if you think about Redemption Song.
Yeah.
I mean, you think about even the fact that reggae music would have been one of the greatest musical art forms of the 20th century, even without Bob Marley.
Yeah.
Even if you remove Bob Marley,
absolutely,
and you're just left with Garnet, you're just left with Dennis, you're just left with Peter, you're just left with Bunny,
Burning Spear,
you're still left with Burning Spear, Ethiopia, etc. You're still left with one of the greatest. Even without Bob. And then even if you take Bob, the volume of he, to me, is undisputedly the greatest songwriter of the 20th century. Like, when the closest comparison would be, you know, Bob Dylan or John Lennon. And I think,
well, I kind of have to argue with there. You know, I love Ken Booth. Ken Booth. But when you listen to Ken Booth's original songs, 100%, when he was all about freedom fighting and things of that nature, Ken Booth was absolutely amazing.
100%.
You know.
So, but this is the point: is that there's Jamaica has produced so many incredible songwriters. I don't even think Jamaicans in Jamaica often stop to take stock of it.
Think of Bob Andy.
Right.
Bob Andy, I mean,
we just think it's normal.
People think it up yourself.
But even the dancehall artists, a lot of people look down on dancehall like a slackness that. But when we think about it, Bounty Killer,
Sizzla,
the Bounty Killer, Anytime, Look, all them early songs, Fed Up, Down in the Ghetto, these are political essays on the state of Jamaica.
That's true.
More profound than most of what, no offense, than a whole bunch of dissertations that might come out of UWE or the London School of Economics. When he says, look into my eyes, tell me what you see, can you feel my pain, am I your enemy? Give us a better way, things are really, like, what's the line when he says, show us hope and we will show you peace? So simple. But you can write a whole book on that statement. And so to me, I think, often, I don't think, which is a good in a way, because you don't want to get carried away with it, but I don't think Jamaicans in Jamaica often take a step back and see what they've really achieved. Like, there is no other country in the world that is a poor country that has the problems Jamaica has, that is a cultural superpower. The only two countries in the world that have the level of cultural output in music particularly that Jamaica has are Britain and America. And these are the two greatest superpowers in the world.
Yes, true.
That's how much Jamaica has overachieved in this.
Yeah.
And this is true of the Caribbean as a whole. So I don't want to look at Jamaican exceptionalism, but that said, Jamaica's particular cultural output is just phenomenal. And I feel like one of the great challenges now for the Jamaican diaspora in America and Britain and the Jamaicans in Jamaica is to figure out how do we use this enormous goodwill and this enormous cultural output to lift the living standards of the average Jamaican in Jamaica. True. Because a country with this much talented people, with this much smart people, with this much culture should not need to have the problems with poverty and violence that it still has. We can solve these problems. It's difficult, very, very difficult with the international situation, with neo-colonial economics, with challenges with the IMF and all of that. But I do genuinely believe, not if solved, we can certainly, if we strategize enough, make an enormous impact, as already has been the case.
True. All right, so now I want you to look into the camera.
Yeah, man.
And I want you to tell your message, whatever that message is, to the thousands of followers that come on our page.
Yeah.
And then give them a little inspiration.
Yeah, man. Well, my message is always the same. Big up everybody. Knowledge is power. And I mean, value and love for knowledge and love of literature. You know, we're here at Calabash Festival, and I really feel like the greatest examples in the world, you look at someone like Malcolm X. Malcolm X goes from, you know, a drug dealer, a pimp, a man who bleaches his head, to one of the greatest political figures of the 20th century. That's the impact of knowledge. Toussaint Louverture goes from a former slave to a slave owner to a revolutionary against slavery because of the power of knowledge. And so, you know, knowledge literally transforms human beings, and that would be my main thing, is just cultivating and developing a love for knowledge. And we already have it. And I was looking at the Glean a couple of days ago, and some young girls made the next stage of the International Spelling Bee.
Yes.
And then they're on the front page. You know? So there's already that nerdy. There's already, you know, Jamaicans are quite nerdy.
Yeah.
And that's not something the rest of the world really knows.
Yeah.
And so I think it's just about cultivating that natural curiosity and nerdiness. So knowledge is power. Big up everybody.
It's fucking hot as balls in here. Damn, sound like we about to get some rain or something. Yo, this collar is gonna kick my ass. I gotta use them little teeny ass brushes. Feel like I've been doing that shit for 2 hours already. Oh yeah, that's a storm coming. This piece looking good though, so far. That shit went down the wrong hole. Damn. I gotta get up out of here, man. It's hot as hell. What time is it? I might be back in here tonight. I'm not sure if I'm a stream or not. I was in here for a couple hours earlier today and didn't stream it. I don't know. Haven't been getting a lot of views lately. I guess people aren't interested in this. But it's weird, man. People don't even watch this stream for me to paint. People watch this stream for me to talk. As soon as I stop talking and start painting, nobody wants to watch that shit. Which is cool. I can understand that. I do have an awesome personality. You know what? I think I don't even need that right now. I don't even need that. Oh yeah, that's rain. It's raining. Get on the game for a little while. This piece is looking pretty good though. I'm enjoying it thoroughly. Oh shit. Oh, there go that thunder. There go that thunder. I got hella videos up here to delete. All right. Catch you guys downstairs in the living room. Peace.